Okay, let's dive right into this explainer. Look around today, and honestly, it's pretty easy to feel like our whole societal operating system is just crashing, right? There's this endless scramble for power, money, status. Pure materialism just kind of seems to be driving everything, and our peace of mind is taking a massive hit. But here's the wild part. This exact kind of societal breakdown, it's really not a new bug in the human system. In fact, it's the precise setting that birthed the Bhagavad Gita thousands of years ago. Today, we're zeroing in on Chapter 9 of this ancient text, but we're not going to look at it just as some religious doctrine. Instead, we're treating the ancient rishis, the sages who actually composed it, as profound, literal scientists of life.
Which brings us to a pretty massive question. Can a 5,000-year-old text genuinely be decoded using the frameworks of modern science? Well, we're going to totally shift our perspective here. Instead of viewing the Gita as this dusty, archaic philosophy, we're going to look at it as a highly practical, surprisingly scientific operating system for the human experience. One that actually uses the language of physics, biology, and psychology to map out reality.
So, here's our roadmap for today. We've got 6 parts. First, the scientists of life. Second, passive versus experiential knowledge. Third, the physics of divinity. Fourth, the biology of society. Fifth, the psychology of intention. And finally, number 6, the ultimate transformation. Let's get right into it.
Starting with Section 1, the scientist of life and redefining ancient wisdom.
To really get this text, we have to rethink how we view these ancient teachers. They weren't just philosophers spinning abstract ideas. They were researchers, mapping the internal human experience with the exact same rigor a physicist applies to the external world. Notice how Chapter 9 titles its core teaching. It calls it Raja Vidya, the royal knowledge, and Raja Guhya, the royal secret. But wait, why a secret? Well, it's not a secret because it's hidden away in some dark cave to keep you out. It's a secret in the exact same way that quantum mechanics is a secret. It's right there, available to everyone, but it remains a secret until you put in the deep analytical study required to decode it. The Gita is offering a sovereign science of the self, giving us practical, imperishable wisdom that actually changes how we live our daily lives.
Moving on to Section 2. Passive versus experiential knowledge. Basically, the difference between knowing and doing.
This section bridges an absolutely crucial gap, because just having the instruction manual is definitely not the same as operating the machine, right? The text makes this brilliant distinction between jnana, which is passive, theoretical book knowledge, and vijnana, which is applied, experiential knowledge. Think of it like this. You could go watch a YouTube video right now on how to code a video game. You can memorize the logic, understand the syntax, know exactly how it should work. That's jhana. But until you actually sit down, type the code yourself, and spend 3 grueling hours debugging a missing semicolon, you don't possess vijnana. The Gita insists that its science absolutely must be experienced, not just memorized.
All right, Section 3, the physics of divinity and the paradox of existence.
So, how do we tackle the ultimate paradox? A creator who is literally everywhere, yet totally unbounded by the creation itself. Well, this actually sounds a lot like modern physics. Look at verse 9.4. It states, "By me, in my unmanifest form, this entire universe is pervaded. All beings exist in me, yet I do not dwell in them." This is basically describing an absolute primordial energy. It's almost like a unified quantum field. It transcends pantheism, where God is the universe, and deism, where God is totally separate. It's this super nuanced state where the Supreme supports absolutely everything, but is confined by nothing.
To really make sense of this, let's borrow an analogy directly from the source material, the iceberg. Think about it. An iceberg is made entirely of water, right? And it floats in this vast ocean of water. The ocean completely pervades and supports that iceberg. However, the ocean itself isn't trapped or confined by the shape of the ice. Just like the water pervades the ice without being bound by it, this unmanifest energy pervades our entire material universe without being limited by it. Now, verse 9.6 builds on this physics concept using another brilliant natural metaphor. It says, "As the mighty wind moving everywhere rests always in space, even so know you, all beings are in me." Let's break that down. Think about space. The wind moves dynamically, and sometimes pretty chaotically, everywhere through space. It causes massive storms, it literally moves oceans. But space itself, it remains perfectly still. It's completely neutral, unaffected, and totally unattached to the movement of the wind. This is such a great way to illustrate how the Supreme acts as a detached observer.
The material world is just in constant, turbulent motion. Creation, maintenance, destruction, but the foundational reality, the actual space where all this is happening, remains perfectly still and completely untainted.
Okay, on to Section 4, the biology of society, going from micro to macro health.
Here, we're shifting our lens from physics over to biology. Because, sure, understanding the universe is great, but we really need to understand our own role within the macroorganism of human society. Swami Chinmayananda uses a striking biological analogy for this. Modern biology tells us a body is only as resilient as its cellular makeup, right? Well, he notes that if the cells in a body are healthy, the whole body becomes healthy. You literally cannot have a healthy body that's made of diseased cells. In that exact same way, a nation or a community simply cannot be healthy when its individual members are unhealthy, whether that's spiritually, mentally, or ethically. The Gita's science is all about healing the individual cell. Your personal spiritual health is the fundamental building block required for a functioning, harmonious community.
Next up, Section 5, the psychology of intention and the power of focus. So, once we realize we're just individual cells in a much larger body, how do we actually heal ourselves? Well, the Gita does something completely revolutionary here. It democratizes spiritual progress through mindset rather than relying on material wealth or complex rituals. But we need to ground these grand scientific metaphors back into reality for a second. Remember the original setting of this text? Arjuna isn't sitting quietly in some peaceful monastery. He is in the middle of a literal war zone, the battlefield of Kurukshetra. He's facing a very real, debilitating psychological crisis, basically a total nervous breakdown. So the science of Chapter 9 is being delivered as an immediate psychological intervention for a guy who is completely paralyzed by anxiety and attachment.
So what's the prescription here? Honestly, it's remarkably simple. Verse 926 outlines an incredibly low barrier to entry for this spiritual science. The verse says that whoever offers a leaf, a flower, a fruit, or even just a little water with pure devotion, it's accepted. There is zero demand for grand, expensive sacrifices that only kings could afford. The ultimate power lies entirely in the devotion itself, not the physical stuff you bring.
And the crucial point here? Modern psychology and neuroscience agree with this ancient verse 100%. Think about neuroplasticity. What we consistently focus our mind and intentions on literally rewires our brain and transforms us. The quality of our focused intention, what the Gita calls bhakti, reshapes our internal experience and our very identity way more effectively than any grand mechanical outward display ever could. Your everyday work becomes worship, and ordinary life becomes a path to liberation, just by shifting the underlying psychological intention behind your actions.
Bringing us to our final section, number 6, the ultimate transformation, the science of redemption.
Now, you might be wondering, what if my code is already full of errors? What if I have made some terrible mistakes in the past? Well, Chapter 9 offers a complete recoding of the human experience. Verses 9.30 and 9.31 offer this radical psychological redemption. The text boldly declares that even if the most sinful person makes a sincere, focused decision to turn towards the divine, they should actually be considered saintly, simply because they've made the right resolution. They swiftly become righteous and attain eternal peace. This proves that past mistakes, past bugs in your system, they don't disqualify anybody from spiritual progress. A sincere intention initiates an immediate transformation of the mind.
And this really synthesizes our entire journey today. We've mapped the unmanifest energy of physics using the iceberg and the wind. We've looked at the biology of society through cellular health, and we've decoded the psychology of intention overriding our past mistakes. These ancient verses genuinely map perfectly to the frameworks of modern science. It proves that this ancient wisdom is just as rigorously structured as the scientific disciplines we study today.
We've explored the royal knowledge today, the imperishable science of Chapter 9. It's an incredible framework that bridges the infinite mechanics of the cosmos right down to the intimate psychology of your own mind. So, I want to leave you with this one final thought. If the universe is the ultimate operating system, and this 5,000-year-old science is the manual, are you ready to rewrite your code?